You're listening to the New Artist Workshop. Welcome back to your favorite podcast. Now, that's what I call a franchise. I'm Peter Mancuso.
And I'm Viviana Metzger, and this is the show where Peter and I pick a film franchise and go through every single installment, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
And that's exactly what we did for the Indiana Jones franchise. Now it's time to take a step back, look at the whole thing, and try to make sense of it all.
And this is your one and only spoiler warning for the entire franchise, yeah.
So hopefully you've watched all of them. But it should be easier. Should be easier than X-Men, because with X-Men there was like 13 different films.
Oh jeez.
Whereas this one's only 4.
Yeah. Well, okay. In the words of, your Italian cousin, here we go.
Oh yeah, Mario. I find that offensive. Okay, so if you joined us for our last franchise retrospective for X-Men, then you'll know how this will kind of go. This will be a shorter episode, but this is kind of a chance for Viviana and I to kind of synthesize everything that we've seen and kind of digest it and look at everything from a macro level, and kind of take a look at our thoughts on the franchise as a whole, our kind of favorite moments from the franchise, our least favorite, kind of talk about what we think, what's everything all about and where we want to see the franchise go. So why don't we start with some data, because I love to crunch the numbers.
Yes, so please. What are our average scores?
Yeah, so for basically what I've done is I've taken all of our scores and averaged them per person and then also total for everybody. So the Indiana Jones kind of franchise score, if you were to take all the Letterboxd scores of all the other films and average those out of 5, Letterboxd, the community, my community, gives it a 3.6 out of 5. That is kind of taking into account, the highs of the first and third one with the lows of the fourth one, especially. Mm-hmm. So in comparison to that, when you take all of my scores and average them, I gave the whole franchise a 3.3 out of 5. So I'm kind of a little bit more cold on it than I guess other people are. And when we average your scores, it's a 3.8 out of 5. Yeah. So, and I think that comes from, you giving the fourth movie such a high score, because you gave it an 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
As opposed to on Letterboxd, it's like a 2. So converting it to 10, it's like a 5 out of 10.
Yeah.
So there's definitely some disconnect. I definitely rated these films, I rated the higher rated films lower.
Interesting.
Right? I gave the Indiana Jones The Last Crusade a 3 out of 5.
Yeah.
And on the score
you basically didn't like the ones that made the series.
No, not necessarily. I liked the first one.
You liked the ones that kind of went more outside of the box.
I mean, not necessarily, because the second one is like my least favorite, and that one's the most out of the box.
Well, okay, that's true. But the fourth one.
The fourth one and the first one. The first one I really like. Well, here's the thing. I like all of these.
Yeah.
There's none of these that I don't like. Mm-hmm. I would say all my opinions on these are still net positive.
Yeah.
But I think this franchise, I was surprised to, when doing this rewatch, it does not hit as hard for me as for other people. Mm-hmm. Again, and we'll kind of talk more about this maybe in a little bit, but I just feel that it just doesn't have, there's not a lot for me to sink my teeth into.
I see that.
Maybe it's just a different style of filmmaking, and not even filmmaking, because it's not about the craft, because the craft is some of the best filmmaking I've ever seen. Spielberg in these is at the top of his game in a lot of these films.
Of course,
but just like on a script level, I'm just kind of like, okay, but so, I need like a little bit more. Like, it's not that I'm against adventure, but it's like, what are we, like, what is at the core of the, like, what's at the core of the adventure?
Sure. Yeah.
What am I meant to take away from it?
Yeah.
And personally, I feel not much. But how do you feel how your scores reflect the overall? Because again, you liked the fourth one a lot more than even me. I mean, I put the fourth one as my favorite, controversially.
Yeah.
But I still only gave it like a 7 out of 10.
Okay, well, mine was only a number higher.
No, but I'm saying, I'm saying that you rated it higher than me.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even your favorite, right? So I'm saying you really like this franchise, is what I'm saying. Like you.
Yeah, I mean, like, I do see where you're coming from in terms of like not having, I guess, like a lot of, I don't know, like very thick. It seems a little thin at times, I guess, but it is like, you know, for all the adventure and, you know, fun and history and whatnot, like, I don't know. I like it. I like it. Even though, like going back and watching these, yeah, it is like a little kind of thin in a lot more places than I remember. But it definitely has like that status. So I think that's kind of overlooked a lot of the times.
Well, something I've been thinking about a lot when watching these is that, like, it doesn't even have to be like this grandiose thematic kind of experience. I think just like on a structural level, oftentimes, except for the third one, which I will give the third one credit for.
Sure.
As opposed to what I'm about to say. That these films oftentimes have very loose structures, particularly when it comes to their climax, in how its protagonist relates to the climax, or maybe better put, does not relate to the climax. And that's a big...
Yeah, does he come out a changed person?
No, he does not. Well, that's not even what I'm talking about.
Oh.
But that's also a thing where it's like he never goes through any growth. You would think he would go through growth, at the very least, more like accepting or expectant of the weird. Because again, I always complain that he's always like, "Oh, that's just a story." It's like, but you've already gone over. Your expectations of reality have already been shattered. So it's like, why? But that's not even what I'm talking about.
Are these just for fun, or does he share these experiences with his students, like,
or even Marcus Brody? No, but that's not even what I was gonna bring up. But that's a problem. But what I was gonna say is just purely on a functional level, Indiana Jones rarely has anything to do with the climax.
Okay.
Well, I guess the second one he actually does. But the first one especially. The climax just kind of happens independent of Indiana Jones. They're all tied up. So I'm looking to the first one specifically, but this also is shared with the fourth one. They're all tied up. They open the Ark, and then the Ark unleashes its vengeance, and then the problem is solved.
Yeah.
And then that's it. And I would have, and I may have said this already when we talked about the first movie, but part of me almost feels like, the opening of the Ark in that movie is the climax, but in a lot of ways, maybe it should have been the shift to Act 3. Like, it's now we're setting up the stage for the climax. Now all hell is breaking loose, and Indy has to somehow stop it from leaving this island that they're on.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But like,
he's not a very like active character in terms of
that's what I mean.
Pushing the story along.
That's what I mean, is that like that's like a very easy fix where it's like he could do something. And maybe it's like a lesson he learned along the way where it's like he doesn't believe in all this mumbo jumbo, but then by the end he has to do something that shows that he believes. And that's kind of what they do with the third one.
Yeah.
Where it's like he has to now kind of like buy into the baloney in order to save his father. Yeah. Right?
Because it's always like someone else or something else that pushes him to do something.
Especially, and the fourth one has the same. Yeah.
Even leaving.
Yeah. And the fourth one has the same problem where it's like they get to the kind of like the throne room of all the different, like the council members of the aliens. Yeah. And then she, the Cate Blanchett, takes the skull and puts the skull on the head, and they just have to escape. Yeah. There's no, like, abstract functional role that he as the protagonist plays. At least in those two films. The third film, a little bit more so, to be fair. And I appreciated that. over the first film. The second film, I honestly don't remember. Like, that's the problem. Is like the second one is so.
What do you mean?
We both put that as our least favorite.
They liberated the camp of child workers.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Yeah. So we both put that as our bottom film. And this is a good segue. Let's talk about the rankings. So, as I always do with these, what I've done is I've taken each of our rankings of the franchise. So not the scores, just like ranking them against one another. And basically kind of trying to combine those rankings. So like if a film is number 1 on mine, that's like 1 point. And basically you combine all the points and it's kind of like golf. So whoever has like the least amount of points at the top, right? So combining all of our rankings, here is our combined Peter Piviana as our couple name ranking from bottom to top, from worst to best. Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. No surprise there. We both put that as our bottom. Raiders of the Lost Ark. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. And controversially, because I put it as my number 1 and you put it as your number 2.
Oh, goodness.
Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Probably the only online discourse about Indiana Jones that is putting that film not only near the top, but the top of the thing.
Yeah.
Of the total.
I feel like we just showed our age.
Yeah, but you know what, though? It's subjective, and I genuinely think this movie was unfairly maligned. That fourth one.
I thought it was good, you know?
Yeah.
It was good.
I think...
silly,
I think people would just... That's the thing, is that it's I don't think it's any more silly than any of the other ones. I think this was purely... I think it was very much inspired by the backlash to the Star Wars prequels. Like, it was kind of like riding that wave of anti-George Lucas. You ruined my you raped my childhood. And it was kind of just like riding that wave. Plus, again, it was like 20 years. And if anything, the wait between this one and The Last Crusade was longer than Return of the Jedi and then Episode 1, the prequels.
Yeah.
'Cause that was only about a 16-year wait. This is not much more. It's only 19 years. But my point is that there was like nothing, except for like the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, where at least with Star Wars, in between that time, there were comics, there were books, there was
like animated shows or anything?
No. So there was a lot more for Star Wars, I think, to kind of tide people over, whereas this, again, there was the prequel TV show, but that was not really as big of a deal as like the Star Wars Expanded Universe was.
I didn't even know that existed, yeah.
Exactly. So I think there was like a lot of, not hype, but just kind of like built up, like what would an Indiana Jones 4 look like or feel like, I think. And I think it just did not meet those expectations. And to be completely fair, though, this movie, the fourth one is riddled with flaws. I think if I was not nostalgic for it, I probably would have given it a 6. I think it probably would have been closer to the other ones. But because I grew up with it, I think there's a fondness on my end that is a bit subjective, to be fair. That is a bit maybe not purely kind of just analytical, but, you know, that's all you could do. What else am I supposed to do, right? So let's kind of take a deeper look at the film, at the franchise. So, Viviana, what I want to do is I want to look at our favorite films each and talk about why they're our favorites.
Yeah.
So let's start with you, because I already kind of talked a little bit about Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I'll talk a little bit more about it, but let's start with you and your favorite film, at least as you have put it, was Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, right? Yes. Holy Grail, daddy issues galore. So talk to me about why this was your favorite of the franchise and why you put this one up at the top.
I think some initial things that come to mind are just like the tightness of it. I feel like some of the other ones get a little muddled in terms of like tasks and why they're doing things and whatnot. Whereas this seems like very through line. And I think that the chemistry between the two, him and his dad work really well, and it's like funny, but also it's like, kind of trying to tackle emotional problems. I don't know.
Yeah.
As we've said, it doesn't entirely work, but yeah, I don't know. And hating on Nazis, I guess.
Hating on those. There's a lot more Nazi hate in this one.
Yeah.
For sure. In the third one. Okay. Again, my favorite, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Of course.
I think what I liked about it is that it... Look, I liked the emotional stuff in this a little bit more. I think this one maybe tied there with the third one. Mm-hmm. This one tries to have a little bit more of like a sentimentality. Yeah. Of kind of a little bit more about being human beings and not just like, we're just on this adventure. On like what it means to be.
I think 1 and 4 are good, but I think what 3 gives me at least is like the kind of deeper dive into their relationship, whereas like I love Marion and I would love to know more about them and stuff, but like they just refer to it. They don't really like get into it. And so it's
in the fourth one you mean, or the first one?
Both.
Yeah.
So it's like
both. That's so funny. Both films are predicated on a relationship.
Yeah.
Or they're like the parts of their relationship that we don't get to see. Yeah. In the first one, she's bitter because he left, and in the fourth one, she's bitter because he left again. Right. So it's kind of interesting, that parallel where it's like both times it's about him not, being there. Mm-hmm. So I wish the films explored that more, that human flaw in him, and they just graze it.
The same thing with his dad, because like he was all wrapped up in the Crusade and whatnot, and so just kind of
it makes it sound like he was at the Crusade. He was he was so wrapped up in the Crusades.
He was wrapped up. It was a party. But I guess like mirroring that a little bit more would have been nice, or like, I don't know. Mm-hmm. It kind of like, it doesn't make me upset, but it's like, dang, because
gee whiz, jeepers,
because I think their relationship is cute, and they're I don't know. They're both tough cookies, but they're soft for each other.
Yeah, I'm really happy of all the women. They bring her back. That she's the... Well, to be fair, there's really only 2 options because the Austrian woman dies in the third one, Elsa. And Kate Capshaw was just so annoying. So it makes sense she was like always the best of the 3.
Yeah, of course.
But I'm glad that they kind of bring her back to kind of continue that story. Because she's the only one where she's not like a Bond girl, whereas like he just meets her during the movie and then they just fuck a lot. Like they had history before, like we've been saying. Yeah. As opposed to Kate Capshaw's character, as opposed to Elsa Schneider. So it would make sense that of the 3, she would be the one to get pulled back into the situation. Mm-hmm.
But it seems too matter of factly, like, oh, this is Marion, and like, yeah, we have this history or whatever. But it's like, we don't know about it.
There's 20 years of in-universe history that we did not get to see.
Yeah. At least...
We're only told about it.
With Indy, I don't know. Like, with Indy, he kind of mentions stuff here and there with his dad. And, like, there's... I don't know. I just feel like there's a little bit more injected into that relationship than it is into theirs. But I don't know. Maybe there will be more development in the fifth one.
Maybe. That's the thing. I don't know if she's going to be in the 5th one. I really hope she's at least in maybe just like a cameo.
She's like a good character, though.
But it wouldn't make any sense that she wouldn't be in it unless they killed her off. Because they got married.
Yeah.
So why would she not be in this one?
I don't know.
Unless she's dead. Okay, so we talked about our favorite. We both shared our least favorite. So let's talk about Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. So why is this our least favorite?
Scary.
Okay, well... I'm not so much scared, but like tonally, it just feels all...
No, didn't we say it was like kind of weird? Like it was very dark, but then it would be like a joke here, but then it'd be like, wait.
Yeah, it just...
Here? Like some...
I think it just lost sight of what made people like Indiana Jones as a character and a franchise. Mm-hmm. It just forgot what made it work.
Do you remember that guy who went in the trap door and he rolled in the trap door?
No.
There was
in Temple of Doom?
Yeah, there was like the main guy and then it must have been like the first time when they weren't doing the ritual, and Indy came over there to like, I don't know, do something, steal the rock or whatever, right? And then the guy.
Oh, yes.
He pulled the lever, but it was...
Yes,
but
and he escaped.
Like a regular one, like a tube. Like, it was like...
It was like human size.
He had to roll into it.
Yeah, he had to roll, like roll on his side down.
It wasn't like on a stage where you would, like, you know...
It wasn't a slide. He had to roll on his, like, back, basically. I do remember this now. Okay, during, like, the big fight,
It's just, like, very silly things like that, mixed with ripping a man's heart out and watching a human being be burned alive.
Yeah, I don't know. It's also very boring. Like, I remember not being super invested in really anything going on.
I remember not understanding the magic so much.
Yeah, because it's never explained that it is magic. Because they take out his heart, but they never say, like, oh, I'm gonna now use this curse to do
but, like,
it.
Doesn't Indy have to drink the poison, and then how does he gets like punched or something? Is that like the way
he gets like woken up, kind of?
Yeah.
It was like the mind control.
Oh,
yeah.
with the fire, right? Like you have to like burn.
Maybe,
something.
yeah.
I don't know. It just seemed very strange, and then it was like, wait, is the prince in on it? And then it's like, oh wait, the prince is you know, poison too.
Yeah. So overall, yeah, I think it's just it's universally, I think, just a meh
also, who's
reaction.
That lady?
Who's what lady?
Who's Capshaw?
Remember, she was like a singer in like Shanghai, and then
yeah, she's just there for like fun. She's not
because they're trying to escape from because she kind of helps him.
Yeah, with like the Chinese
take
mob
off the
or
mob.
something.
Yeah, like the Chinese mafia or whatever. And
but because like Elsa, she's like a doctor. Like she's
Kate Capshaw is completely through
she's
circumstance, a
she's
coincidence.
She's here for the ride.
So yeah, I think, I think unlike our favorites, your favorite makes sense in the context of like the broader reaction to these films.
Okay.
Mine does not, but most people I think would put Temple of Doom as their least favorite. Yeah. Just because I think it just loses sight of what makes the franchise work, and it's boring. Like we watched it a couple months ago.
Yeah.
But even if we watched it like last week, I probably wouldn't remember a lot of it. I think it's just a movie that like just kind of like it just kind of goes out one ear and
That's
comes
what
out.
I'm saying.
It's hard to keep track of everything in your brain
don't they
afterwards.
go to like a million places? They're like, oh, we're in Nepal. Oh, we're in India. Oh, we're in here. Oh, we're in there.
Kinda, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of like different. Yeah, I suppose. Not so much a lot of globe trotting, but there's a lot.
One? That was a different one.
That's probably the other ones,
Okay.
but there's not a lot of globe trotting in the way you mean. But there's just like a lot happening all the time. You know, whereas with the other films, I feel like there's also a lot of locations, but they're all anchored by very memorable set pieces.
Yeah.
Whereas with this one, it's like we're here, and then we're here, then we're here, and they just kind of keep jumping around
it's like within, right? So it's
even if it's geographically all close. I'm just saying,
it's
as a viewer, you kind of just like forget what happened where, and it just kind of all bleeds together.
Yeah, wasn't it like. I forgot what we said. It was like the town or something. Like we didn't see it for like 20 minutes, and we're like, "Oh yeah, that's what we're doing." There.
Yeah. Okay, so.
But you know what? I wonder why the first one isn't higher though, because that's the thing that kicked it all off. Is what.
Well, I mean, to be fair, the very first film has the highest Rotten Tomatoes score and Letterboxd score.
Okay.
But just for you and I, well, the reason is because you put it as your third favorite.
Well, no,
and I put it as my.
Well, that makes sense then, and never mind, because critically, but.
Yeah, I think that one is the most beloved, the very first one, which makes sense.
What is it critically like? All of them ranked.
Oh, I don't know, because our rankings are our rankings.
No, I know.
Not the score. Oh, like in terms of just ranking the scores, you mean like who has the highest scores for the films?
Like each, so like, is the Temple of Doom
Doom
that is agreed upon critically?
No, actually, you know what? Yeah, I'm an idiot. Crystal Skull is everyone's least favorite. I forgot about the fourth one. No, everyone hates the fourth one.
Okay, and then Temple of Doom,
and then we would be Temple of Doom probably. Last Crusade,
the
and then
first or the third.
The third would probably be the second best, and then the first one would be the best.
Okay.
Based off of, I think, other people. Yeah, I don't know why I was saying that most people would put the Temple of Doom at the bottom. I forget that people hate the fourth one. But I don't understand. I think the fourth one is just as silly and dumb as all the other ones. I don't know.
Maybe...
I guess it was Shia LaBeouf. I guess it was The Fridge, and it was Shia LaBeouf swinging with the monkeys. That just killed the movie.
Silly.
It just killed the movie for, I think, a lot of people.
Oh, and the digital groundhogs.
And the digital ground, but that's barely in it. That's just funny.
But they're like... It makes a point for you to look at. It's not like...
They bring up multiple times,
It's not just like they're there. It's like a whole bit.
It is a bit.
They start playing Hound Dog.
With the groundhogs.
With the ground, yeah.
But you know what? They commit to the bit.
Prairie dogs or whatever.
Whatever they are. They're some kind of dogs. Okay. So, looking at the franchise as a whole then. So, when you think of this franchise, when someone says Indiana Jones, what pops up in your brain first? Like, I don't mean like which film. I mean like an image or like an idea or like anything. Like, when you hear the word Indiana Jones, where's your brain go?
Him in his suit. Probably, I don't know what cover that's on. Maybe The Last Crusade? I don't know. But him, basically, right? The hat, the shirt and everything. His adventure outfit, but also like archaeologist teacher. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah. I don't know. That's kind of weird, right? But
so you kind of see like the duality of him. That's what you think of,
like that's what's basically driving it. But this is how it looks, and this is like how it happens, mm-hmm. right? Like the archaeology and the history is what's driving it, and like ultimately that's what he is. He's like a teacher.
Yeah.
But like he also looks like this like rugged mountain man mm-hmm. who goes on international adventures.
But and that's important because that distinguishes him from like the guys at the beginning of the third one who are just in it for the money.
Yeah, just like
he's in it for like the history, like
just like people going and searching for whatever reason. I don't know, like I don't know, like fame and fortune or like
He's not here for the fame and fortune because he's very low key about it.
No, like, yeah, he's like actually cares about the meaning behind it and whatnot. It's not just like to have a cool action adventure movie.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What about you?
For me, I think of the first 20 minutes of the first movie when they're in Peru and he's with his team of, random kind of mercenaries he's picked up mm-hmm. and they're going in, they get and maybe that's like a cop out. It's
the
like
ball,
maybe it's a cop out because it's like the most iconic images, but like something about that for me, and then him running to the to the boat, like that's like a beautiful, perfect little short film. Like, mm-hmm. 20-minute short film. It has a beginning, middle, and end. Mm-hmm. It's, like, perfect. It's just perfect the way it is. Because for me, it really captures, like, the tone and his, like, how Harrison Ford's command of the screen mm-hmm. and as the character. And if I really were to, like, condense that down, like, okay, not a 20-minute thing, Peter. Like, what actually do you think of? The very first time we see his face, when someone's trying to steal something from him, right? Yeah. And he cracks the whip and the guy runs away and he comes out of the shadow and like the music goes like bum 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 bum. That for me is Indiana Jones, right? That's what I think of.
Yeah. Okay.
And I like it more when it really takes itself seriously and like there's something like really intriguing, psychologically interesting about this man. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
I think that's good because then you have the opportunity to like experience the series like us, where you're a little bit more open-minded about it because of the ambiguity. Like, okay, archaeology, history, and action adventure. You could do so many things with that,
Yeah.
Whereas, like, some people, I guess, in opposition to the fourth one, with like aliens and stuff, they just have like a different image of like more traditional kind of like on the ground.
Yeah.
In the Amazon adventure kind of thing.
And
I don't know.
I think you've either intentionally or perhaps unintentionally, I think you've hit on something really important in analyzing the reaction to the fourth one.
Yeah.
And I think a similar thing happens with Star Wars. Mm. And this is not to excuse the prequels, because the prequels are just riddled with problems. Filmmaking problems. And Star Wars problems. But I think a big reason why people reacted the way they did to the fourth one is that because it had been so long. This is what happens when you have a franchise dormant for so long. They get set in what they think the franchise is supposed to be.
Yeah, it is weird.
And it's very hard to sometimes accept, it's a very delicate dance
Yeah.
of keeping true to what made the franchise great in the first place while also giving you something new.
Yeah.
And very rarely
it's
is someone able to pull it off.
It's a continuation, which is different from like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which is a complete reboot.
Yeah.
So it's like very weird and delicate process.
It's very hard to do. And I don't even pretend to say, like, I'm not even arguing that they pulled it off with the fourth one. Mm-hmm. But I think that's a big problem with it, that I think in terms of people, I think being unfair to the film. Not to say that the film pulled it off, but just that I think the film was a little bit more successful at doing what it was trying to do than people gave it credit for at the time and now.
Yeah. I mean, do you think people would have liked the fourth one more if it was, more aligned with the other ones, like smaller budget, not as many special effects, like just, like I feel like they tried to adapt with the time. I mean, we also talked about how it was like a complete shift from like the
genre,
the bees, to
the bees from like action adventure serials of the 30s, which fits the decade, to more like 50s science fiction B movies.
Yeah,
which I think is an inspired choice. I think that totally fits.
I never knew that, but now seeing that, I mean, that's pretty cool that they've.
Because George Lucas is very
they're
like
trying to adapt, to the character. And
I think people would have complained about it being just same old. That's the thing. I don't think you would have. I don't think anyone would have been happy.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know. I mean, because I feel like even though it's horrendously ridiculous, but like all the CGI animals, like the prairie dogs and. The monkeys and
though I will say one of the monkeys is real. When he first sees the monkey, it's real.
Okay.
But the giant ants.
Well, giant ants aside, because those are just cool.
Yeah.
But like or like even with the whole aliens and stuff. Oh, excuse me, interdimensional beings.
Yeah, excuse me, interdimensional beings. Yes.
Or even like when they're taking off in their UFO saucer. I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like they tried to expand upon it with a larger budget in a new time, you know?
And you know what? I think this touches on... I'm really hoping these retrospective episodes aren't just us playing our greatest hits of ideas. I'm hoping, like, we present new ideas. No, so forgive me if I already said this, but I think we said this when we talked about the fourth one, where it's like, if you're going to do aliens... Right? Because here's the thing, they could have gone full B movie.
Yeah.
And really done like something really science fiction-y. But I think they did it in a really great way in keeping true to Indiana Jones, because they kind of take the ancient aliens angle, which is still archaeology focused.
Would it be better for people like if it was Egypt instead of like, where were they, like South America?
No, I don't think it was the location. I think they just didn't like...
Well, because, people like already associate like, the pyramids with like aliens.
But people say that about South America too.
They do. Okay.
Yeah. Everything in the fourth one, people have talked about. Like remember they talked about like the images in the sky?
Oh, yeah.
People have said, like, that's not just something they came up with for this movie. Like, that's something that people talk about. Like, archaeologists and anthropologists have wondered, like, why would they have created these images that can only be seen from the sky?
Yeah.
If there was no way to get up there.
The like
with no flights.
Circles,
yeah.
But
why would the ancient peoples have created those designs if you wouldn't be able to see them? Right? So
what if there was a mountain?
There wasn't. My point being is that these ideas existed. This movie didn't invent those ideas.
No, I know, but I just feel like maybe the pyramid situation is a bit more like, that's my water.
Sorry, I'm taking some of Viviana's water because I'm really thirsty, but I don't want to get up.
I don't know. Maybe that one's a bit more famous and would like resonate more with people, but
I don't know.
I don't know.
Anyway, okay.
But I do agree with you saying that I think that people would be like, oh, it's just the same thing, but he's like 20 years older now, if it were comparable to the other ones.
Yeah. And again, I think his arc of basically becoming like a government black operative, like, and I mean black operative as in black ops, not he's an operative who is black.
Of course.
But I think that makes complete sense. Do you know what I mean? Like, logically. Okay. So if he was still doing the same thing he was doing before,
and he made tenure,
he's now a tenured professor.
He got tenure.
Okay, so I don't think there's a good answer to this next question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What is the franchise truly about? Like, again, not about, like, on its surface, but, like, at its core. Like, what is it about? I don't know.
I think we're going to have to take a pause on the podcast here because this is a long thinking time.
Well, I can just talk and fill the air while you think, but I think if I had to come up with an answer, you had a gun to my head. I think it's about a, like, I don't even mean like the theme. I just mean like kind of like what are the abstract ideas, and I would say I think I may have a good one. Okay. It's about the delight is not the word, but like the joy of discovering, right? The joy and something fundamentally human about learning about ourselves, as a species, as a culture, as a you know, a civilization or civilizations, yeah. And that joy and pleasure for its own sake being put in contrast with selfish, self-serving exploitation of that discovery. I think it's about that struggle. I think is, you know, and I think that's really exemplified in the third one at the very end when Sean Connery's character is like, I forget what he says, but he says like, oh, it's we didn't get the Grail, we got enlightenment, or like, you know what I mean, like inspiration or illumination is what he says. Illumination. Yes, illumination. And that it was its own good in of itself. It was not a means to the end. Yeah. Means to an end the way it was for Donovan, who wanted it for a specific function. Yes. And I think that if you had to try to put some kind of thematic idea that it's about the contrast and struggle between those two kind of approaches to anthropology, archaeology, and history. And in a broader sense, resources, and power, right? So that's what I would say if I was writing like a thesis paper on this. That's what I would argue.
That's interesting. I think I would agree with that, but I was also thinking about how like it kind of seems to be about the prevail of truth and I mean, in these contexts, you know, it's like there's an evil force, most of the time the Nazis, but like that somehow discovering the truths of the past can like overcome the evils today or something like that. Like, I don't know. Does that make sense? Like, I know we talked about joked about's the wrong way to say it, but you know, him putting stuff into museums and not really like giving it back to the people. Yeah. But like, I think
there is still something valuable about that, because people still get to learn about it. Yeah.
No, yeah, but I think like in a twisted, like maybe white savior type of way, it's bringing light or bringing justice to the underdogs of history, right? And it's like, I don't know, just like discovering truth. So that goes hand in hand with what you're talking about, is like learning about ourselves. But
like the story of us, you know, as they would say. Like,
yeah, like, but I feel like it's kind of similar to the what is it? He who doesn't know history is doomed to repeat it. Mm-hmm. So it's like
he who goes to bed with itchy butt wakes up with stinky fingers.
Sure. And
yeah.
You know, so it's about learning those things and like and I don't know, just bringing just like truth and light and justice.
Just to give a clearer understanding of history and peoples, and I think it kind of is like
just like the world today.
It's kind of like that movie, that James Gray movie we watched, The Lost City of Z or Zed.
Zed.
And his whole point is that like if I discover this, it proves that they were actually like they have this civilization and people have more historical value than we give them credit for.
No, yeah.
Though I would argue, even if they didn't have an advanced civilization, they should still be valued. But in any case, I completely agree with what you're saying. That there's like a value in
that like
understanding
somehow...
us, in understanding peoples of the world, and disregarding the white savior element of it.
Yeah.
That there is, it is still problematic in of itself.
Yeah.
But, that those items being in some British white museum, well, at least the British people who went got to learn about it. You know what I mean? Like we as a not as individual cultures or countries, but just as a species, we learn more. Yeah, humans, we get to learn more about ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we actually answered that pretty well.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
I think we actually came up with some decent analyses of that.
Like and comment if you agree.
Mm-hmm. Like and comment. And that's what I mean about, because this is something Vivian and I have talked about off mic, is like, that's what I mean by theme, right? I had a great English teacher in high school, Elizabeth Thompson, if you're listening. Probably not. I don't know how you would ever find this. But she was very clear on, like, a theme is not a word. Theme is not love. Love is not a theme. A theme is a sentence, like a full sentence. Mm-hmm. And, a theme, so love isn't a theme. Love can be corrupting if it becomes an obsession, is a theme. That's like an idea, right?
Yeah.
So what we just said would be like the theme of the franchise, right? Like the idea of like,
I think it's like,
do you know what I mean? That's what I mean when I say a theme.
Yeah.
I don't mean a word or a single concept. It's like a put together sentence that represents a thought, an idea, a perspective, right? And that's what stories are about, is about a writer ultimately giving their perspective, right? So just kind of contextualize that going forward. If we start arguing about what a theme is, we're going back to this episode.
I guess so. That could work. But yeah, I mean, I guess Sean Connery, said it perfectly, because it's like, no matter what angle or like what theme we come up with, it's always about, some type of dissatisfaction with the now, learning about the past, and, becoming enlightened, but also gaining a greater appreciation, or at least contextual understanding of today, and trying to do the right thing from there.
So could you say, disillusioned with the present, look to the past to build a better future? I'm Vivian Metzger, and I'm running for Congress.
I like Ike.
I like Ike. So
that was so random. So
when is the franchise at its best? Like, what qualities I don't know how best to ask this question. Maybe that's not the best wording of it. Like,
you know what? Wait, to continue on. With the Crusade, and wow, you're really chowing down on my water right there. So
I'm very thirsty. I don't know, my mouth is very dry.
With the Crusade, with the Ark, and all of that, maybe that's why there's so much like religious iconology, or like
iconography.
Iconography, or like, I don't know, like
in what?
Because it would be. Then like the light and the enlightenment and the truth and goodness.
There is something quasi-religious about.
Is a little bit more on the nose.
There's not getting into specific doctrine. There is something quasi-religious about these films, especially the third one. Especially.
Yeah, it's like those basically being the building block, or that religion or truth, good, whatever. Being the building blocks of who we are.
They are the conduits through which the otherworldly God, if you will, enters into the world.
Yeah, the guiding goodness of Indy, but also anyone else who chooses to, follow that and not become greedy and want to give jewels to the Nazis.
If he didn't have so much sex, Indy could be a great messianic figure.
Indiana Jones, the monk.
I would love to see a version of this, but it's like a monk who goes on adventures.
What?
So let me ask my question again. When is the franchise at its best? And like what I mean by that is, like maybe I'll go first and kind of try to come up with an answer, and you'll maybe see what I mean. Like,
sure.
Like I think like when the franchise is at its best, it's when it is brisk, fun, but also at the same time really basing itself in the mythology and the archaeology, right? When it's just guys punching each other for 30 minutes, I zone out. Right?
Yeah.
But when everything is contextualized and really kind of centered around a specific... Like, I love in the first one when they have to sneak into, like, the little, like, miniature of the town or whatever, and he has to put, like, the stick and the light and find where it's buried.
Oh, yes.
Like, I like that because, like, there's, like... It's still kind of actually because there's tension of, like, oh, they're going to be found out, like, but it's also built into, like, the mystery. Like, I like when they're solving the problems of the archaeology.
Yeah.
And the mystery. So that's when I think the film is at its best, is when it really kind of focuses on the mystery. Mm-hmm. What about you? When do you think the franchise is at its best?
I guess I would agree with that because I was thinking just like whenever Indy reveals the truth or like good has prevailed or like the truth has prevailed. Mm-hmm. And I guess in order for that to happen, one must solve a riddle. So.
One must solve a riddle. When is it at its worst? When is this franchise just, it's like, I know you can do better than this.
When it's trying to be like a Mission Impossible movie.
You think so? Like a James Bond kind of?
I guess so, yeah. I mean, I don't know.
Do you think of a specific example? Like where in one of the movies is it trying to be like a Mission Impossible movie?
Well, I mean, I know you thought it...
I think of the beginning of the second one as like a James Bond ripoff. Because he's dressed like James Bond.
Yeah.
It's like about, like, they're in, like, China. Like, you know what I mean? Like...
I guess, like... I mean, you think that it's a natural progression in his career. But, like, the whole, like, Black Ops, double agent, working for the government. I don't know. It just seems a little silly, like... Mm-hmm. I don't know. How did this, like, small town, Utah, like... archaeologists get wrapped up in working for the like FBI or like CIA or something, like I don't know. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm sure it's possible, but it just I don't know.
Well, I would imagine that again because of his particular skill set of knowledge of many cultures, knows many languages, easily able to get in and out of countries, very easily.
Yeah.
Has contacts in all of them.
I guess just like what makes...
He'd be a good spy, is my point.
No, I guess just like what makes
approached.
him different. You know, like, I'm sure there are plenty of other people who, you know a lot of history or, could be sent...
He knows a lot. He's a nerd, but he's also a badass. That's the combo. That's what makes him different, is that he...
Yeah.
Because someone like James Bond is not as smart, I think, or as worldly.
Well, he's worldly. Just I don't know. I guess he's not too much into history. I suppose.
That's what I mean. I mean, like he's not like super knowledgeable. I think about things necessarily. Yeah. Though I've only ever seen like two Bond movies, so
more techie.
Okay. So how would you compare? So kind of looking at the trajectory of the franchise, how would you compare the beginnings of the franchise to the newer entries? So I guess. This is kind of harder with this one because there's only 4 films as opposed to X-Men. Mm-hmm. There was like 13 films that came out pretty regularly, whereas this one was like 3 films and then like a really long pause. Yeah. But, how would you compare the first one to the 4th one maybe? Like, how do you think it changed over time? If at all, maybe it didn't, right? And I think that's something to consider, right? And not just in terms of its content, but just like its aesthetic, its vibe.
No, I mean, I can totally see the difference between the first and the 4th one, and I think they're trying to, as naturally as possible, follow the progression of his life in the time in which each story is told. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know we already said that, but...
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, I think there's also something to, like, for me... The big way I would compare it is you just see an evolution in Spielberg's talent. Mm-hmm. Not to say that the 4th one is... Well, I mean, technically, I do think the 4th one's the best one. But I think... And I talked about this when we talked about the 4th one. That you can see his growth as a filmmaker between Last Crusade and Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. You can see Schindler's List. You can see Saving Private Ryan. You can see these films and his... evolution and revolution of his skills, of his precision, and also you can see with the bigger budget And also, yeah, something else not to discount is the advent of the computer-generated technology, right? So, and how that changes the kind of stories they can tell, right? Because they wouldn't have been able to do aliens or interdimensional beings in the 90s, or would have looked really.
They could. It'd be kind of silly.
It wouldn't have worked because it would have been a bunch of little ETs, you know what I mean? Like.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say that though, because I think Indiana similarly can be mirrored with Spielberg's progression and maturity in his career, because like in the beginning of the first one, I forgot who told him to go there. I don't know, but they're just like
it was like the government.
Yeah, but I don't know. I just feel like he's become more of a kind of go-to person as it goes along, and even. He's known internationally in the Soviet Union about being such a knowledgeable person about certain things, or having experienced and seen certain things, and so it's like, his
reputation has really expanded.
Yeah, his authority on.
That's an interesting analysis of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Spielberg was already hugely famously successful when this first film came out. Because he had directed Jaws, Close Encounters, right? But between Last Crusade, again, Schindler's List he just exploded. He went from being a very popular George Lucas type to really being considered one of like a very serious, respected directors.
I mean, he did like Color Purple and all that.
Color Purple, but Schindler's List was the real shift.
Very multifaceted.
That's the thing, and that's something I really love about Spielberg is that I'm not, sometimes I think his movies are a little overhyped. Like I like E.T. I think it's good. Again, we're recording this.
So many classics.
Yeah, that's the thing. We're like we've talked about. We're recording these like months in advance. So this won't be as relevant. But his newest film, The Fabelmans, is like a huge critical. It's received huge critical acclaim.
Yeah.
I think it's okay. Right, I think it's right. So I'm not a Spielberg sycophant, is my point. But I really do appreciate his versatility. He'll horror, thrillers, historical dramas, action adventure, family films, science fiction. They're all so different, yet they all feel like Spielberg films. Like they all have that consistent thing.
I mean, there are definitely a lot, like some that are better than others, but I feel like they're not bad movies. Even the bad ones, I don't know.
I have not seen all of his. I have not seen all of his films by any means.
But I don't know. I just feel like him as a craft.
Even his worst film is still pretty okay.
Yeah. Just like as a craft.
Mm-hmm. He's definitely one of the best directors to ever live.
Yeah. Very well rounded.
Yeah. Except maybe some of his more recent work, which has been pretty mediocre. BFG.
I have not seen BFG or.
I have not seen Ready Player One.
Did he do Tron? Or no, that was Ready Player One.
Which I have not seen, but I have heard is fairly nah.
But I'm sure it's well directed. You know what I'm saying? It's probably a shitty movie. But
it's really weird, his projects that he's been choosing recently. It's why are you making you're Steven Spielberg. Why are you making the BFG? Why are you directing Ready Player One? This weird IP overload, just recognizable characters and stuff.
Well, does he have grandkids? Maybe he's doing it for them.
I don't know. I think he's kind of in his bucket list era, frankly, where he's just I'm going to do West Side Story because I love West Side Story, so I want to remake it. I'm going to do The Fabelmans because I want to do my story. Mm-hmm. He's going to be doing a remake of a movie called Bullet from the 70s.
Okay. With
Bradley Cooper in it. I don't know anything really about Bullet, but now he kind of seems like he's in his retrospective phase where he's just is looking backwards.
Yeah.
And not necessarily in a bad way. I liked West Side Story.
Like style-wise?
No, I just mean I guess the subjects he's choosing to do to make films about,
including
indie, right? Although he's not doing this new one. Like I said, remember James Mangold is direct. So this is a good segue into the last question. Where do you want to see this franchise to go? Now, again, like I said 5 seconds ago, we're recording this in November of 2022. I believe this is going to be coming out in April of 2023, and then not long after this, the 5th one comes out. By the time you hear this, listeners, A trailer has probably come out for that 5th one. But as we are talking about this now, the only things we have are actually, as of very recently, some production photos.
Okay.
Of him in like the outfit, him like running through a street like in a suit. Matt Mikkelsen, who I guess is gonna be like the villain.
Okay.
But other than that, we really don't know much or have seen much. So if you're listening to this, forgive us. But I think that is also kind of interesting because we're gonna kind of give like a perspective. And then you'll see, like, how does it compare to what actually happens with, like, the trailer? Because I'm sure by the time you listen to this, we'll know the name of the movie.
I wonder, like,
and what they're looking for.
As a marketing person, I wonder, like, what they're doing. Are they
it's probably going to come out
living off of Indiana Jones? Like, I've seen, like, literally nothing.
If I had to make a guess, and then we can go back and listen and see if I was right. From what I know about the film industry, my strategy would be a trailer in front of the new Avatar movie. Because again, it's all synergy. It's all that it's all Disney technically.
Sure.
So that would be when I would drop a big trailer for this movie. It would be in front of Avatar. Because that's like Disney's next big movie.
Yeah.
So that's when and that would make sense like, about 6 months before that would kind of.
No, yeah. I just mean like there's been so much talk about it, but like. Is it like actually happening? I guess it is.
100%. Oh yeah, we have photos.
No, I know. I mean, I'm saying now because we have photos and stuff, but like beforehand.
And I believe it was going to come out even sooner, but then the pandemic. I think they were going to film. I think they were going to film like in like the summer of 2020, and then but like things got or something like that. But so let's talk about where do you want to see this franchise go? In terms of I guess like the tone, the topics, the subject matter. So here's what we do know. About this new one is it takes place in 1969.
Yeah.
I don't know if the story is really getting involved in this, but it's very much placed in the late 60s to coincide with the space race. And apparently there's going to be an element of indie wrestling with the fact that NASA is just filled with Nazis. Right, which is historically true that after World War II, not now necessarily. And I don't mean politically. I just mean in terms of people who I should say Nazis and people who are neo-Nazis going to rallies. I mean Nazis as in the Nazis. I'm not here to defend the Nazis, but when it comes to some scientific breakthroughs, they were very ahead of the curve.
You're saying, we made them help us.
What we did, and the Soviets did the same exact thing.
Yes,
that we basically took Nazis from their science programs, their rocket programs especially.
Yes.
And used them, and basically we're like, we'll give you, we'll basically pardon you of all your horrible war crimes if you. And this was a secret. This only came out. This wasn't like people in the 50s knew that all these ex-Nazis were in NASA working on that. But so apparently this 5th film kind of deals with that.
Like actually working, not just like contractors.
No, they were like they helped develop the rockets we use to go to space. Like, so I guess India is kind of dealing with that. So of course we're going back to the Nazis, which I was joking where it was like, of course they're gonna go back to the Nazis again.
It always goes back.
But I guess it kind of makes sense. I really hope that it's not like. I don't know. I really hope it's not just Nazis again. Like, I understand that's the context.
But they're... Okay. They cause so many problems.
Okay, yeah,
it's not even silly for them to be the bad guy and everything.
But why... But you know what? You know the enemy should be in the late 60s? The fucking American government is who the enemy should be. No offense. Now, again, not to get political on Maine, but... Late 60s? But if you look at the late 60s, the curbing of protest, the Richard Nixon's administration, curbing of protests, the Vietnam War, black operations across the globe.
Killing black leaders.
Yeah, like, if anything, the government should be the enemy of this movie.
Indiana Jones should team up with the Black Panthers.
Yeah, like, I don't know. No, because he's very conservative, as we learned. But also, so another element is, so Phoebe Waller-Bridge is playing, I guess, his goddaughter. Oh. I don't know who her parents are supposed to be. I don't know if they're going to be characters we already know. I don't know. But she's going to kind of be like his sidekick. Okay. Because she's going to be kind of like the mutt of this movie. Because as we talked about last one, of course, Shia LaBeouf is certainly not coming back into this one because he kind of burned that bridge. So what I would like to see, and I think I already said this, so again, I'm sorry if I sound like a broken record, is keeping with the trend of when it's in a new time period, you know, the genre of the film should be the dominant genre of that time period. And I think I'm really hoping that this film is like a political thriller, right? Because that would really fit with like the late 60s, you know, with like a lot of Robert Redford. That's more like the early 70s, but it's kind of the same era. Sure. You know, because if we really to get technical, the big films of those were like American New Hollywood, New Wave, indie, domestic dramas. And that wouldn't really fit for Indiana Jones to have like like The Graduate kind of movie, you know?
It comes full circle, Indiana Jones in American Graffiti.
Yeah, yes. He goes to see Indiana Jones. So that's kind of like what I'm hoping for. And I'm also really hoping for them to give, and they're not going to.
Oh, it says Shia LaBeouf.
No, where does it say that?
On the cast list?
That's Google. That's not like a source.
All right.
That's just like the Google, because Google will just auto-populate from other sites, and it'll just guess at what you're trying to ask for.
No, I just typed in.
I know Indiana Jones 5, and it's guessing what you are looking for. So it's just pulling cast from all the other movies. Yeah, no, there's no source that he's going to be in this movie. Find me like an article, and then we'll talk. So what I'm also hoping, and I don't think they're going to do this, is I'm hoping that they justify why an 80-year-old man or however old he is still doing this shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's what I want to know is like how are you going to narratively justify this other than just like, well, it's Indiana Jones and, you know, well, he's going to be in it. He's awesome. He just likes to do stuff. Like what is like.
Okay, well, not to be ageist, but Harrison Ford is 80 years old.
Yeah, like I don't know. Like it's not about ageism. It's just
the poor man has already a crooked nose. Let him rest. He needs to pass on the buck. Indy has made tenure. He's got
tenure.
He's made tenure. He's got a great, beautiful house. I think, unless that was the other guy's house, I'm not really sure. It's not really made to be clear.
I'm fine with an 80-year-old being in an action movie. That's not me being ageist. But in the world of the story, why would this 80-year-old dude still be doing this?
I know.
Shit?
I'm saying I think he should just pass on the buck, and I think that's what they were trying
the torch,
to
you mean?
do. Yeah, they were trying. Well, you could say both, but they were. That's.
The buck's more like the blame.
Who says that?
That pass the buck. That's what that expression is. Pass the buck.
Oh.
Yeah, that's a famous expression.
Blame.
That's what that means. Pass the buck. No, not anything.
Okay. Pass the torch to Mutt, but then you know it was like kind of a psych. It was kind of a fake out.
Psych. Yeah.
So I don't know.
Well, do you think they're gonna pass the torch to her? Because I think there'll be a big. We saw with like the Star Wars sequel trilogy with like. Yeah. The backlash to a black lead, a female lead, like I think people will just go ape shit in the wrong way if they pass it on to a girl. Oh my god, so horrible.
Yeah, but like, wasn't it the same thing with Doctor Who? But like people
were pissed about that too.
That's like
people like they're making Indiana Jones woke. No, I guarantee that's gonna be the complaint.
Okay, well it's 69. He should be. She should have at least one eyeball open.
Yeah.
Should be a little bit awake.
Yeah. But any last thoughts on Indiana Jones or anything else you want to say? Say now or forever hold your peace until we come back to talk about the fifth one in a bonus episode.
Well, because we will need to revisit this once the other one comes out. Both this one and its own. If you're listening to this, I don't know why you would be. Harrison Ford, but I love you. Okay.
That is it for this week's episode of Now That's What I Call a Franchise. Next week, I'm very excited for this. Next week, we'll be starting our next franchise. We are going to be going over the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise.
Pirates of the Caribbean?
Caribbean.
No, creepy. It's a creepy
We could talk about problematic Johnny Depp.
Is he problematic?
He was Amber Heard.
I thought you meant him as like Jack. Never mind.
No, well, Jack Sparrow's probably problem. I'm sure he did not ask for consent before he starts sticking things in the things.
Sticking things.
Yes, Viviana, where can they find us? Let's wrap this up before we get canceled. Where can they find us?
All right. So
Where can they find us, Viviana?
I was trying to think of a joke about skeletons and pirates. Anyways, you guys can find us wherever you get your podcasts, as you may know. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at Franchise Podcast. We'll keep you up to date. Yeah.
Can I say my part?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. We know you have many podcasting options, and we thank you for choosing us. Peace out, guys.
Bye.